Tonight, we explore forests. And right now, as you breathe, you're breathing what they made for you. Trees are talking, not with words, but with chemicals floating through soil. A mother tree can recognize her own children and send them extra sugar when they're struggling. She's doing this right now, in forests all over Earth. Beneath your feet, an invisible internet connects every root to every other root. Trees sharing food, warning of danger, keeping stumps of fallen neighbors alive for decades. The forest is one organism, and it's been talking this whole time. If these quiet forest connections bring you calm, consider joining our community of science lovers. Where are you listening from tonight? What time is it there? We'd love to know. You can subscribe to explore more peaceful science with us. This is your place for calm curiosity. Let's explore these quiet giants together and let their peace become yours. Beneath every forest, there's another forest, an invisible one. It's made of thread-thin strands, thinner than sewing thread, spreading through soil like a hidden web. These threads belong to fungi, mushrooms, and they're connecting every tree root to every other tree root, creating something scientists call the wood wide web. Picture it simply. A mushroom grows from these threads, the way an apple grows from a tree. The mushroom is just the fruit. The real organism lives underground, spreading everywhere, touching everything. And trees have learned to use this network. Here's how it works. A tree root meets a fungal thread. They wrap around each other. The fungus draws sugar from the tree. Food the tree makes from sunlight. In return, the fungus shares minerals and water it pulls from soil. Fair trade. But something more amazing happens through these connections. Trees share food with each other through the fungal highways. A strong tree in a sunny spot sends sugar through the network to a struggling tree in shadows. Scientists have traced this. They've fed trees radioactive carbon and watched it move through soil to neighboring trees. The forest is sharing, constantly. And mother trees, the oldest, largest trees in the forest, they recognize their own children. Researchers discovered this by studying Douglas firs. A mother tree can identify her offspring through chemical signals in the network. She sends them more carbon than she sends to stranger trees. She's feeding her children extra nutrients, helping them grow stronger. Even more remarkable, mother trees support their young differently, depending on what the young trees need. A seedling in deep shade gets more help than one in partial sun. The mother tree somehow knows which child needs more. She adjusts her giving. But here's something that stopped scientists in their tracks. When foresters cut down a tree, the stump usually dies within weeks, but not always. Sometimes a stump stays alive for decades. Its bark stays fresh. New growth appears at the edges. How? The surrounding trees are feeding it through the underground network. They're keeping their fallen neighbor alive. One famous stump in New Zealand has been alive for years since its tree was cut. Scientists measured sugar flowing into it from nearby trees every single night. The forest refuses to let go of its own. This sharing network is always active. Right now, in forests across the world, sugar is flowing through fungal threads. Mother trees are nursing seedlings. Strong trees are supporting weak ones. Even in winter, when everything looks still, the wood wide web stays alive under frozen ground, keeping the forest connected. But this network does more than share food. These underground highways carry something else. Messages, warnings, chemical signals, that travel tree to tree faster than you'd think possible. The forest isn't just connected, the forest is talking, and that's where our story goes next. The Wood Wide Web doesn't just carry food, it carries warnings. Trees are sending messages right now, alerting their neighbours to danger, and they're doing it through the same fungal network, using chemistry as their language. When an insect starts eating a tree's leaves, that tree doesn't suffer silently. Within minutes, it begins producing defensive chemicals in its leaves. Bitter compounds, toxic tannins, substances that make the tree taste terrible or even poison the insects. But here's the remarkable part. Neighbouring trees start producing the same defensive chemicals, even though nothing is eating them yet. They received the warning. Scientists first noticed this with acacia trees in Africa. Giraffes would start browsing on one acacia, eating its leaves. That tree would quickly pump tannins into its foliage, making the leaves bitter. The giraffe would move on. But here's what researchers couldn't understand. The giraffe would often walk past the next few acacias and choose one farther downwind. Those nearby trees had already made themselves bitter. The browse tree had released chemicals into the air, volatile organic compounds that float on the breeze. Downwind trees detected these airborne warnings and responded by producing their own defensive tannins. The giraffe had learned to walk upwind to trees that hadn't received the message yet. This happens everywhere. When caterpillars chew on tomato plants, those plants release a specific scent. Neighbouring tomato plants detect it and start producing compounds that attract wasps. The wasps hunt caterpillars. The plant is literally calling for help, and its neighbours are preparing the same defence. Through the underground network, the communication is even more sophisticated. A tree under attack sends chemical signals through the fungal threads to connected trees. It's faster than air signals and more targeted. The message travels root to root through the living internet of the forest. Researchers tested this by covering some trees with bags to block air signals, then letting insects attack them. The bagged trees couldn't send airborne warnings, but neighbouring trees still increased their defences. The message had travelled underground through the mycorrhizal network. Different attacks trigger different messages. A tree being eaten by insects sends one type of warning. A tree infected by disease sends another. Neighbouring trees can tell the difference and prepare appropriate defences. If the threat is insects, they produce insect deterrents. If the threat is fungal infection, they boost their antifungal compounds. Even more fascinating, trees remember. Once a tree has responded to a warning and produced defensive chemicals, it responds faster the next time. Its memory lives in its cells, ready to activate quickly when danger appears again. The forest learns from experience, and these chemical conversations happen constantly. On a spring day in any forest, thousands of messages are travelling through soil and air. Trees are updating each other about water availability, nutrient levels, threats, and opportunities. The forest is alive with communication we can't see or hear. Some scientists now think of forests not as collections of individual trees, but as single organisms, superorganisms. Every tree is like a cell in a larger body, connected through the fungal network, sharing information and resources, responding together to challenges. When one part is threatened, the whole system knows. This means the forest operates as a community, not competing, cooperating. The strongest trees don't hoard resources. they share them. Trees under attack don't die alone. They warn others. Old trees don't withdraw in their final years. They feed the young. The whole system works together to survive. Right now, in the forest nearest to you, this conversation is happening. Trees are talking, sharing news, preparing defenses, supporting each other. It's been happening for millions of years, long before humans existed. And it continues every moment, in every forest on Earth. But this conversation isn't just between trees. The network connects other beings too, and the forest's protection extends to something we can feel ourselves. Something that heals us just by being near it. Trees are protecting themselves with chemicals, and when you walk through a forest, you're breathing those same chemicals. They're called phytoncides, and they're doing something remarkable to your body right now. Phytoncides are oils trees release into the air. Cedar releases them. Pine releases them. Oak releases them. Every tree makes its own blend, but they all serve the same purpose: protecting the tree from bacteria, fungi, and insects. The air in a forest is thick with these invisible compounds. When you breathe them in, they enter your bloodstream through your lungs. Within minutes, they start changing your body's chemistry. Your cortisol drops. That's your stress hormone. Your blood pressure lowers. Your heart rate slows. But the most surprising change happens to your immune system. Japanese researchers discovered this while studying Shinrin-yoku, which means forest bathing. They sent people to walk in forests for 2 hours. Then, they tested their blood. The walkers had significantly more natural killer cells than before. These are white blood cells that fight infections and cancer. One forest walk increased them by almost 50%. Even stranger, the effect lasted. A single day in the forest boosted immune function for a full week. A weekend in the forest boosted it for a month. Your body remembers the forest even after you leave. The scientists wanted to know why. Was it just relaxation? They tested people relaxing in cities. No immune boost. Was it the exercise? They tested people walking on city streets. Still no boost. Something specific to forests was causing this. They narrowed it down to phytoncides. In laboratory tests, they exposed human cells to these tree oils. The cells increased their production of anti-cancer proteins. The tree chemicals were directly activating protective genes in human cells. This makes evolutionary sense. Humans evolved in forests. For millions of years, our ancestors lived among trees. Our bodies learned to recognize forest air as safe, as home. City air triggers mild stress responses. Forest air triggers healing responses. Different trees release different phytoncides. Evergreen forests release high levels year-round. Deciduous forests release more in summer when leaves are full. But even winter forests help. Even bare branches release some compounds. Any forest is better than no forest. The benefits go beyond immunity. People walking in forests show reduced activity in their prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain that overthinks, worries, and ruminates. Forest air quiets the anxious mind, not through meditation or effort, just through breathing. Hospital patients with windows facing trees heal faster than patients facing buildings. They need less pain medication. They have fewer complications. Doctors can't fully explain it, but the data is clear. Trees help us heal. Some countries now prescribe forest time. In Japan, doctors write prescriptions for forest bathing alongside prescriptions for medicine. Walk in the woods twice a week. Breathe deeply. Stay for 2 hours. It's considered legitimate medical treatment. And you don't need wilderness. City parks work. Street trees help. Even photographs of forests lower stress hormones slightly. Your body recognizes trees at a deep level. It knows them as allies. The phytoncides are strongest in morning and after rain. The air feels fresher because it is fresher, full of these protective oils. That smell you associate with forests, that's partly phytoncides. Your body registers that scent as medicine. Right now, forests around the world are releasing these compounds. The air above them shimmers with protective chemistry, and when we enter that air, we're entering an ancient pharmacy. Trees offering healing they don't even know they're giving. But forests heal more than just our bodies. They heal something deeper. Something about the way they change sound itself. The way they create a silence that's different from any other silence on Earth. Step into a forest and the world goes quiet. Not silent, quiet. There's a difference, and your body knows it immediately. Forests absorb sound. Bark, leaves, moss, and soil all trap sound waves. The texture of a tree trunk catches high-frequency noises and holds them. Leaves flutter and break up sound before it can travel far. The forest floor, soft with years of fallen needles and decomposing matter, swallows footsteps. Scientists measured this. They played recordings of traffic noise in forests and in open fields. In the field, the sound carried for miles. In the forest, it died within hundreds of feet. Trees are natural sound barriers, but they're selective about what they block. Human-made noise disappears. Car engines, machinery, voices, the harsh mechanical sounds of modern life. Forests muffle all of it, but natural sounds pass through. Birdsong travels easily between trees. Water sounds carry. Wind in leaves moves freely. The forest filters out what doesn't belong. This isn't random. The frequencies forests block most effectively are the same frequencies that stress human nervous systems. The low rumble of traffic, the high whine of electronics, the chaotic overlap of urban noise. These are the sounds that keep your cortisol elevated, that prevent deep rest, and forests remove them from the air. Research shows your blood pressure drops within minutes of entering forest silence, not just from seeing trees or breathing phytoncides, from the sound itself, or rather, from the absence of certain sounds. Your nervous system registers safety when the mechanical noises vanish, but there's more happening. The sounds that do exist in forests have specific patterns. Bird calls in the morning peak at frequencies optimized for traveling through trees. Evolution shaped their songs to move through branches and trunks efficiently. They've learned to use the forest as an instrument. Wood thrushes sing in the early morning when air is still and cool. Their flute-like calls travel farthest then. Chickadees wait until afternoon when wind picks up, using shorter, sharper calls that cut through moving air. Each species times its communication to match forest acoustics. Even wind through leaves creates patterns your brain recognizes as safe. The rustling is random but not chaotic, natural but not threatening. Your ancestors heard this sound for millions of years. It meant shelter. It meant home. Your body still responds to it. Studies in hospitals found that playing recordings of forest sounds helped patients sleep better than silence or white noise. The gentle, irregular patterns of natural sound seem to calm the human mind more effectively than perfect quiet or artificial noise. The Japanese have a concept called ma, negative space, the silence between sounds. In forests, ma exists everywhere. A bird calls, Silence. Wind moves through branches. Silence. A stream flows in the distance. Silence surrounds it. This rhythm of sound and space creates a natural meditation. You can feel this when you sit still in woods. At first, you might think you hear nothing. Then, your ears adjust. A woodpecker in the distance. Leaves brushing together. Your own breathing. Each sound exists in its own space. Not competing, not overlapping. Everything has room. This spaciousness does something to time. Minutes feel longer. Hours pass unnoticed. The lack of constant sound removes the urgency from existence. Nothing is rushing. Nothing is demanding your attention. The silence itself becomes restful. Even in the noisiest forest, say, during spring when every bird is singing, the sound never becomes overwhelming. Trees space it out. The forest creates natural separation, natural peace. And within this quiet space, something ancient exists. Something that changes how you experience time itself. There are trees alive right now that were saplings before the pyramids were built. Bristlecone pines in California, twisted and ancient, some over 5,000 years old. They were young when humans invented writing. Time moves differently for trees. A year passes for them like a single day passes for you. They experience seasons the way you experience morning, afternoon, evening, night. Spring is their dawn. Summer is midday. Fall is evening. Winter is sleep. Think about what this means. A tree that's 300 years old has lived through 300 springs. But to the tree, that might feel like 300 mornings. It's lived less than a year in tree time. The oldest trees have lived maybe 15 tree years. This isn't just poetry. Trees actually process time differently. They respond to day length, to temperature changes, to seasonal cues. But their circadian rhythms run slowly. A hormone signal that would move through your body in seconds takes hours to move through a tree. Their internal clock ticks in slow motion, and they remember. Tree rings aren't just growth markers, they're memory. A wide ring means a good year, plenty of rain, warm spring, long growing season. A narrow ring means drought or cold. Scientists can read these rings like a diary. This year was hard. That year was generous. This decade was warm. That century was cold. One bristlecone pine in Nevada contains a record of 5,000 years of climate. Its rings show droughts from ancient times, cold snaps that killed civilizations, years of plenty when empires rose. The tree stood through all of it, adding one ring per year, remembering everything in its wood. Consider what one ancient tree has witnessed. A 3,000-year-old tree was young when Troy fell. It was middle-aged when Rome rose and fell. It was mature when Columbus sailed. It grew its most recent ring this year, still alive, still adding to its memory. These old trees have seen the same mountain thousands of times in every season. They felt rain that fell before Jesus was born. Their roots touched soil that dinosaurs never saw. They bridge time in a way humans can't. But even young trees experience time slowly. An oak that's 50 years old might still be considered adolescent. It won't produce significant acorns for another 20 years. It's in no hurry. The forest has taught it patience. Trees can wait. Some seeds lie dormant in soil for decades, waiting for the right conditions. When a tree falls and opens the canopy, these ancient seeds suddenly sprout. They were waiting, just waiting. Time doesn't pressure them the way it pressures us. This slow living changes everything about how trees work. They don't panic. When drought comes, they close their stomata and wait. When winter comes, they pull their energy inward and sleep. When disease strikes, they wall it off and grow around it. They have time to respond slowly. And maybe this is what we feel in forests. The presence of a different relationship with time. When you're among trees, their patience becomes contagious. Your own rushing quiets. Your urgency fades. You enter tree time, where nothing needs to happen quickly. The Japanese call old forests Shinju no Mori, sacred groves, not because of religion, but because of this quality of timelessness. Step inside, and the modern world's frantic pace simply stops applying. You're in a place where a year is a day, where centuries pass like seasons, where patience is the only speed that exists. And these patient giants are doing something else with their slow existence. They're keeping time not just for themselves, but for the entire planet. Trees are breathing right now, all of them. Every tree on Earth is inhaling what you exhale and exhaling what you need. It's a perfect exchange, happening constantly. One large tree produces enough oxygen each year for 2 people. A mature oak makes about 260 pounds of oxygen annually. That's roughly what 2 humans consume. The math is almost poetic in its balance. But here's what makes it even more remarkable. Trees don't need the oxygen they produce. It's waste to them. They split water molecules to get hydrogen for making sugar. And oxygen is the leftover byproduct. They release it because they have no use for it. And we built our entire existence around breathing their garbage. The process is simple. Leaves capture sunlight. That energy splits water into hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen combines with carbon dioxide to make sugar. The oxygen escapes through tiny pores in the leaves. Every leaf is a small factory, producing food for the tree and air for everything else. The Amazon rainforest used to be called Earth's lungs. People said it produces 20% of our oxygen. But scientists now know the truth is more complex. The Amazon produces enormous amounts of oxygen, yes, but the forest also consumes most of it through decomposition and animal respiration. The net contribution to global oxygen is close to 0. This doesn't make forests less important. It makes them different. They're not pumping new oxygen into the atmosphere. They're keeping the system balanced. They inhale carbon dioxide, which we produce too much of, and store the carbon in their wood. They're filters, not just producers. Most of Earth's oxygen comes from ocean phytoplankton, tiny floating plants that cover the seas. But forests do something phytoplankton can't. They store carbon for centuries. A tree locks carbon inside its trunk for its entire life. When it dies and becomes soil, that carbon stays trapped for decades more. One tree can store a ton of carbon dioxide over its lifetime. A forest stores millions of tons, and it does this while producing enough oxygen to keep the local air fresh, even if that oxygen doesn't travel far. Think about the exchange happening right now. You breathe in oxygen. Your cells burn it with sugar to make energy. You breathe out carbon dioxide as waste. A tree absorbs that carbon dioxide. Its leaves use it to make sugar. It releases oxygen as waste. You inhale that oxygen. The cycle continues. Neither of you could exist without the other. It's not just humans. Every animal depends on this trade. Birds in the canopy, deer on the forest floor, insects in the bark, all of them breathing what trees discard, and trees absorbing what animals exhale. The whole system works because waste for one is food for another. This exchange has been happening for hundreds of millions of years. Long before humans existed, trees were producing oxygen. They built the atmosphere we inherited. Ancient forests created the air that allowed animals to move onto land. We're breathing the result of billions of trees living and dying over geological time. And the exchange continues. Every breath you take contains atoms that passed through a tree recently. Oxygen molecules that were part of water inside leaves yesterday. Carbon dioxide you exhale will be inside a leaf tomorrow, turned into wood that might stand for centuries. You're connected to forests through every breath. The air is a shared resource, cycling between your lungs and their leaves. You're in constant conversation with trees, trading molecules, keeping each other alive. But this breathing does something even bigger, something that shapes weather itself. Forests make their own rain. A single large tree can pump hundreds of gallons of water into the sky every day. And that water becomes clouds, which become rain, which falls back to feed the forest. It's a cycle the forest controls. The process is called transpiration. Tree roots pull water from deep soil. That water travels up the trunk, through branches, into leaves. Then it evaporates through those tiny pores where oxygen escapes. Water vapor rises into the air, invisible, constant. One mature oak can transpire 40,000 gallons of water in a year. That's enough to fill a small swimming pool. And it's not even trying. It's just a side effect of photosynthesis. The tree needs to keep those leaf pores open to absorb carbon dioxide, and water escapes as a result. Multiply that by every tree in a forest. The Amazon rainforest releases 20 billion tons of water into the atmosphere every day. That's more water than the Amazon River discharges into the ocean. The forest is pumping a river into the sky daily. This aerial river has a name: flying rivers. Scientists tracked the water vapor using isotope markers. They found that moisture from the Amazon travels thousands of miles. It moves west, hits the Andes Mountains, turns south, and brings rain to regions that would otherwise be desert. Cities far from the ocean depend on water that passed through forest leaves. Without the forest, the rain stops. Researchers compared regions where forests were cleared with nearby intact forests. The cleared areas received 30% less rainfall. The trees were gone, so the aerial river dried up. The land became drier, which made it harder for new trees to grow. A cycle of increasing drought. Even in temperate forests, this happens. The Pacific Northwest gets massive rainfall, partly because coastal forests transpire moisture back into the air. The water cycles repeatedly. Ocean to rain to trees, to clouds to rain again. Each cycle moves moisture farther inland. Cloud formation itself depends on forests. Water vapor needs something to condense around. Dust particles work, but forests provide something better. Those same phytoncides we breathed earlier. These organic compounds float into the upper atmosphere and become nucleation sites. Water vapor clings to them and forms droplets. The droplets become clouds. Satellites show more clouds forming above forests than above grasslands or bare ground, even when temperature and humidity are identical. The forest isn't just releasing water, it's creating the conditions for that water to become rain. This means forests stabilize climate locally. During dry seasons, they release stored water. During wet seasons, they absorb excess. They're like massive climate control systems, regulating moisture and temperature across entire regions. And it happens in layers. Canopy trees transpire the most, sending moisture high into the atmosphere. Understory trees add moisture at medium heights. Shrubs and ferns contribute closer to ground level. The forest creates humidity at every altitude, building a zone of moisture that feeds itself. In tropical forests, rain falls almost every afternoon. The morning sun heats the canopy. Trees transpire heavily. By noon, the air is saturated with moisture. Clouds form. By 3 or 4, rain falls back onto the forest. It's predictable because the forest makes it predictable. The water that falls today might have been in a tree yesterday, in a cloud this morning, in the soil tomorrow, and in another tree next week. It cycles endlessly, and the forest keeps the cycle going. But water isn't the only thing cycling through forests. There are smaller builders at work, creating something essential from what falls. Pick up a handful of forest soil. You're holding more living organisms than there are humans on Earth. Billions of bacteria, millions of fungi, thousands of tiny invertebrates, all of them working in darkness, transforming death into life. The forest floor is covered with what looks like trash: dead leaves, fallen branches, shed bark, animal droppings. Everything that dies or falls ends up here, and none of it stays. Bacteria move in first. They're the pioneers, breaking down the softest tissues. A fallen leaf becomes slimy. That slime is billions of bacteria consuming cell walls, releasing nutrients. They work fast on fresh material, doubling their population every few hours when food is abundant. Fungi come next. Their thread-like hyphae penetrate deeper, breaking down tougher materials like lignin and cellulose, the stuff that gives wood its strength. They produce enzymes that can dismantle molecules bacteria can't touch. A fallen log becomes punkwood, soft and crumbly, riddled with fungal networks. Then come the larger decomposers: springtails, mites, millipedes, earthworms. They eat the partially decomposed material, grind it further in their guts, and excrete it as simpler compounds. A millipede processes leaf litter through its digestive system and produces rich castings that plants can use immediately. The process takes time. A leaf might decompose in a year, a small branch in 5 years, a large log in 50. But nothing is wasted. Every molecule gets recycled. Carbon locked in wood becomes carbon dioxide that new trees absorb. Nitrogen trapped in proteins becomes nitrogen in soil that roots take up. The forest is a perfect recycling system. This is why forest soil smells the way it does. That earthy scent after rain is geosmin, a compound produced by soil bacteria called actinomycetes. They're decomposing organic matter, releasing this smell as a byproduct. Your nose can detect geosmin at concentrations as low as 5 parts per trillion. You're smelling life being rebuilt from death. 1 square meter of forest floor can contain more than 1,000 species of invertebrates. Each species specializes. Some eat only fresh leaves. Others prefer partially rotted wood. Some hunt smaller decomposers. Together, they form an intricate food web, all hidden beneath the surface. The soil itself is mostly decomposed organic matter. What looks like dirt is actually the bodies of countless organisms from decades or centuries past, broken down into elemental components and mixed with mineral particles. You're standing on transformed life. This rich earth holds nutrients that trees need, but it also holds water. Forest soil can absorb rainfall like a sponge, storing it in tiny spaces between particles. During dry periods, tree roots tap into this reservoir. The decomposers created the soil structure that makes this possible. Without decomposers, forests would drown in their own debris. Dead material would pile higher each year. Nutrients would stay locked in fallen trees, unavailable to living ones. The whole system would collapse within decades. But decomposition keeps everything moving. Death feeds life. What falls feeds what grows. The end of one tree is the beginning of countless others. And there's a strange beauty in this. The richest soil in the forest is where the most death has occurred. The darkest, most fertile earth is centuries of accumulated decay. Life thrives most where death has been most thoroughly transformed. Forest soil takes centuries to develop its full richness. You can't create it quickly. It's a slow accumulation of decomposed material, mixed and processed by billions of organisms over generations. This is why old forests have a quality new forests lack. Their soil contains centuries of recycled life. But sometimes this feeding takes an even stranger form, dead trees giving life in ways that seem almost deliberate. A tree falls in the forest, it crashes down, opening a hole in the canopy, letting light flood the floor. And then something remarkable happens. The fallen tree becomes more alive than it was standing. These are called nurse logs. A dead tree lying on the forest floor, slowly rotting, hosting more life than a living tree ever could. Walk through an old forest and you'll see them, fallen giants covered in moss, sprouting young trees in a perfect line along their length. The process starts immediately. Bark beetles tunnel into the fresh wood, creating galleries where they lay eggs. Woodpeckers follow, drilling holes to reach the beetles. Those holes become entry points for fungi and bacteria. The log begins to soften. Moss colonizes the bark within months. It doesn't need soil, just moisture and a surface to grip. The moss holds water like a sponge, creating a constantly damp microclimate. Seeds landing on this moss find perfect germination conditions. Moisture, nutrients from decomposing wood, and elevation above competing ground plants. Hemlock seedlings particularly love nurse logs. In Pacific Northwest forests, nearly 90% of young hemlocks grow on fallen trees, not on soil. The rotting log provides everything they need. As the seedling's roots grow down through the decomposing wood, they absorb nutrients directly from what the log used to be. You can see the evidence decades later. Mature trees standing in perfectly straight rows, all growing from the same nurse log. The log itself has completely decomposed, returned to soil, but the trees it nursed remain, their roots straddling the space where their nurse once lay. Dead trees support more species than living ones. One study in the Pacific Northwest counted over 200 species using a single dead tree. Insects, fungi, lichens, mosses, small mammals, birds, salamanders. The tree had become an apartment building for the forest. Inside the rotting wood, salamanders lay eggs in moist cavities. Centipedes hunt in the decaying layers. Fungi fruit on the surface. Each zone of decomposition hosts different life. Fresh sapwood feeds one community. Heartwood feeds another. Punkwood, near complete decay, feeds yet another. The nutrients are staggering. A large Douglas fir log can contain hundreds of pounds of nitrogen, slowly released as it decomposes over 50 years. That's 50 years of steady fertilizer for everything growing nearby. The fallen tree is feeding the forest long after its death. Some nurse logs last a century. A massive old-growth log decomposes slowly because its wood is dense, its heartwood resistant. All that time, it's nursing generation after generation of young trees. The seedlings that sprouted on it in its first decade of decay might themselves be mature trees by the time the log finally disappears. This is forest generosity. A tree spends centuries gathering nutrients from soil, storing them in its wood. When it falls, it returns everything, slowly, deliberately, making sure the gift lasts as long as possible. Even fire-killed trees give this way. Snags, standing dead trees, provide nest cavities for birds and dens for mammals. When they finally fall, they become nurse logs like any other. Nothing is wasted. Every death is an inheritance. The forest has no concept of waste. What dies becomes food. What falls becomes foundation. The strongest trees tomorrow are growing on the bodies of yesterday's giants. It's a kind of immortality, not of the individual, but of the system. And this generosity extends beyond nurse logs. The forest has engineered something even more fundamental. A way light itself becomes food for life. Light moves through a forest like water through a sieve. It filters down through layers, changing color and intensity at each level, creating worlds within worlds. The canopy catches most of it. Tall trees with crowns spread wide absorb up to 95% of sunlight before it reaches lower levels. Their leaves are built for full sun, thick, waxy, packed with chlorophyll. Their solar panels optimized for maximum capture. What passes through arrives transformed. The green leaves above absorb red and blue light for photosynthesis. They reflect green, which is why they look green to us. So the light reaching the understory is tinted green, filtered through the canopy's color preferences. But even this filtered light doesn't fall evenly. It moves. Sunflecks, patches of direct sunlight, slide across the forest floor as the sun crosses the sky and wind moves branches. A fern might sit in shadow for hours, then suddenly receive a burst of full sun for 30 seconds before returning to shade. Plants below have learned to track these moving lights. Some understory leaves can reorient themselves within minutes to capture a passing sun fleck. Their chloroplasts, the organelles that perform photosynthesis, physically move inside leaf cells, positioning themselves to intercept brief moments of brightness. These sunflecks provide up to half of all light energy reaching the forest floor, even though they only illuminate any given spot for a few minutes per day. Understory plants have become specialists in capitalizing on these brief opportunities. They can ramp up photosynthesis to maximum capacity within seconds when light arrives. The lowest plants work with almost nothing. Mosses on the forest floor might receive less than 1% of full sunlight. They've adapted by becoming incredibly efficient. They can photosynthesize with light levels that would starve most plants. Their green is darker, richer, packed with extra chlorophyll to catch every available photon. Here's something strange. The green color we see when we look at leaves is the light trees reject. Plants absorb red and blue wavelengths because those contain the most useful energy. Green sits in the middle of the visible spectrum, less energetically useful, so plants bounce it back. We see their waste light. Some scientists think this is why green is so restful to human eyes. We evolved in forests. The dominant color was reflected light that plants didn't want. Our visual system learned to process green effortlessly, without strain. Blue sky and green forest became the colors of safety. The layered light creates layered life. Each level of the forest hosts species adapted to that specific light regime. Canopy dwellers live in near constant brightness. Understory plants exist in perpetual twilight. Forest floor organisms work in near darkness. Each layer is like a separate ecosystem stacked vertically. This architecture is ancient. Forests have been building in layers for hundreds of millions of years. The first forests were simpler, all trees roughly the same height. But over evolutionary time, they learned to stack. Tall trees shading shorter trees, shading shrubs, shading ferns. More layers meant more total leaf area capturing sunlight, more efficient use of space. The efficiency is remarkable. A forest captures more sunlight per acre than any other ecosystem. Not because individual trees are better at photosynthesis, but because the forest has learned to stack its solar panels. Vertical space becomes usable. Light that passes one tree gets caught by another below. And within these stacked layers of filtered light, entire kingdoms exist. Secret worlds that most people never see. Below the canopy exists a hidden kingdom, the understory, a twilight zone where plants have learned to thrive in permanent shade, where flowers bloom in darkness, where life happens quietly. Ferns dominate here. They're ancient plants, older than flowering plants by 100 million years. They perfected shade living long ago and never needed to change. Their fronds unfurl in spiral patterns, maximizing surface area to catch every scattered photon. Some ferns can photosynthesize with light levels so low you'd struggle to read by them. These plants never see direct sun. The canopy blocks it completely, yet they thrive. A sword fern in the Pacific Northwest can live for decades in deep shade, growing steadily, reproducing through spores that float on air currents to find new patches of shadow. The understory has its own bloom schedule. Spring ephemerals are wildflowers that flower before trees leaf out. Trillium, bloodroot, spring beauty. They emerge in early March when the canopy is still bare. For 6 weeks, full sunlight reaches the forest floor. These plants compress their entire annual cycle into that brief window. They flower, get pollinated, set seed, and store energy. By the time the canopy fills in and shade returns, they've already died back, dormant underground until next spring. It's a gamble on timing. Emerge too early and frost kills you. Emerge too late and you miss the sun. Spring ephemerals have calibrated their internal clocks over thousands of generations to hit the narrow window perfectly. Other understory plants take a different approach. They stay green year-round, photosynthesizing slowly but constantly. Wintergreen, partridgeberry, Christmas fern, their strategy is patience. They grow slowly, reproduce rarely, but outlast almost everything else. A Christmas fern can live 50 years, adding just a few fronds annually. Mushrooms fruit here too, though they're not plants. They emerge from the underground fungal networks we talked about earlier, pushing fruiting bodies up through leaf litter. Some appear only in deep shade. The forest floor in autumn becomes studded with them. Chanterelles, boletes, amanitas. Each species has its preferred light level, its preferred tree partners, its preferred moisture. Light in the understory changes through the year. Early spring is bright before leaves emerge. Summer is deep green twilight. Fall brings dappled light as leaves thin and yellow. Winter can be surprisingly bright when deciduous trees are bare and low sun angles penetrate deeply. Plants here have learned to photosynthesize in all seasons, even winter. Evergreen ferns continue their slow carbon capture under snow. Their metabolism drops to nearly nothing, but it never stops. They're ready to accelerate the moment conditions improve. The air itself is different in the understory. More humid, more still. The canopy blocks wind, so understory air barely moves. This creates a stable microclimate. Temperature swings are dampened. Moisture stays high. It's a protected space. Animals know this. Salamanders live their entire lives in understory shade, never venturing into open sun that would dry their permeable skin. Certain birds nest only in these dimmer layers, avoiding the harsh light and exposure of the canopy. The understory is refuge. And at night, when the sun sets and the canopy goes dark, the understory doesn't change much. It's already twilight. The transition to full darkness is gentle, which means night in the forest is its own world entirely. When the sun sets, the forest doesn't sleep, it changes shifts. Day creatures retreat, night creatures emerge. The forest operates around the clock. Owls leave their roosts. They've been sitting motionless all day, eyes closed, waiting. Now they open those enormous eyes, pupils dilating to catch every bit of starlight and moonlight filtering through branches. An owl's eyes are so large they can't move in their sockets. The bird must turn its entire head, which it can rotate 270 degrees. But owls don't hunt by sight alone. Their hearing is extraordinary. A barn owl can catch a mouse in complete darkness using sound alone. Its face is shaped like a satellite dish, funneling sound to ears placed asymmetrically on its skull. One ear sits slightly higher than the other. This lets the owl pinpoint prey in 3 dimensions. It hears a mouse's heartbeat under snow and strikes perfectly. Flying squirrels glide between trees. They're awake only at night, when hawks can't see them. A membrane of skin stretches between their front and back legs. When they leap, they spread their legs and become airfoils, gliding up to 100 feet between trees. They can navigate in near total darkness, using whiskers and memory to avoid branches. Moths take over pollination duty from bees. Night-blooming flowers open white or pale petals that reflect moonlight. They release heavy fragrances that carry through still night air. Lunar moths, sphinx moths, underwing moths, dozens of species visit these flowers, transferring pollen while feeding on nectar. Some flowers bloom only at night, specifically to attract moth pollinators. The forest floor comes alive with different sounds. Crickets and katydids begin their singing. Each species has its own frequency, its own rhythm. They're not singing for joy. Males are calling for mates, each trying to be heard over the others. The sound builds into a chorus that pulses through the darkness. Salamanders emerge from under logs. Their skin must stay moist, so they hunt only when humidity is high, at night or after rain. They move slowly across leaf litter, eating tiny invertebrates. A red-backed salamander can live 15 years in a territory the size of a kitchen table, hunting the same few square feet every night. Bats leave their roosts in hollow trees. They navigate by echolocation, sending out ultrasonic calls and listening for echoes. A bat can detect a mosquito from 6 feet away using sound alone. They catch insects in flight, sometimes eating half their body weight in a single night. The wood wide web stays active. Trees continue sharing resources underground even in darkness. If anything, the sharing intensifies at night when photosynthesis stops and trees can focus on other processes. Sugar flows through fungal threads. Chemical signals pass between roots. The underground conversation never stops. Some trees even move at night. Leaves droop slightly in darkness, then rise again at dawn. This circadian rhythm is subtle. You wouldn't notice it unless you watched carefully. But time-lapse cameras show it clearly. Trees responding to day and night. tracking light with their foliage. Predators hunt. Foxes patrol forest edges. Bobcats stalk deer trails. Weasels slip through tunnels in leaf litter. The forest night is not peaceful for prey animals. It's dangerous, full of hunters with extraordinary senses adapted for darkness. Yet the night forest feels calm to humans. The darkness removes visual clutter. You hear more clearly, smell more sharply. The forest reveals itself differently when you can't see it, when you must sense it through sound and scent, and the feeling of space around you. And this rhythm of day and night, this pulse of activity and rest, teaches something about time itself. Seasons move through forests like slow waves. Trees prepare for winter months before it arrives, reading signals invisible to us. Day length is the primary cue. Trees measure darkness. As summer nights grow longer, trees detect the change through photoreceptor proteins in their leaves. When darkness exceeds a threshold, around 12 hours per night, the tree begins its preparation. First, it stops growing. No point making new leaves that will freeze. Energy gets redirected from growth to storage. Sugars concentrate in roots and trunk, preparing for the long fast ahead. Then comes the leaf change. People think cold weather causes autumn colours, but it's day length. The tree has already decided to drop its leaves weeks before frost arrives. It's been planning this since August. Chlorophyll breaks down first. This green pigment masks other colours present in leaves all summer. When chlorophyll degrades, hidden pigments emerge. Carotenoids create yellow and orange. These molecules were always there, helping with photosynthesis, but green overwhelmed them. Now they show. Red colours are different. Anthocyanins aren't present all summer. Trees manufacture them in autumn specifically. Why make new pigments just before dropping leaves? Scientists think anthocyanins protect the leaf during nutrient withdrawal, acting as sunscreen while the tree pulls valuable nitrogen and phosphorus back into its branches. This nutrient recovery is crucial. A tree invested heavily in those leaves. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, trace minerals. Before dropping them, it reabsorbs up to 50% of these nutrients. The leaf's green fades because the tree is stripping it of anything useful. Finally, the tree builds an abscission layer at each leaf stem, a barrier of cells that seals off the leaf. Water and nutrients stop flowing. The leaf, now disconnected, dries and falls. Wind takes it, or rain, or its own weight. The tree is now bare, but it's not dormant yet. Roots continue growing into November, sometimes December. Underground, protected from frost, roots keep extending, storing more sugars, preparing for spring. Buds formed in summer wait on every branch. Tiny, tightly wrapped bundles containing next year's leaves and flowers. They're already complete. Miniature leaves furled inside protective scales. The tree made them months ago. They just need warmth to unfold. Winter truly begins when soil freezes. Now the tree enters dormancy. Metabolism drops to nearly zero. Water in cells concentrates with sugars and other compounds that act as antifreeze. Cells dehydrate slightly, preventing ice crystals from forming and rupturing cell walls. The tree endures. Temperatures that would kill it in summer are harmless now. Its cells are protected. Its buds are sealed. It waits. Snow accumulates. This helps the tree. Snow insulates roots from extreme cold. It provides moisture when spring comes. Heavy snow can break branches, but overall it's beneficial, and the tree tracks time even while dormant. It counts cold days. Many trees require a minimum number of freezing days before they can break dormancy. This prevents them from budding during a warm spell in January, only to be killed by February frost. The tree must experience winter fully before it trusts spring. Come March or April, day length increases. Soil warms. Sap begins flowing. Sugars stored in roots move upward, feeding the swelling buds. The tree is waking, but slowly, carefully. Buds swell for weeks before they open. The tree is testing conditions, waiting for the right combination of warmth and moisture. Then, over a few days, buds burst. Tiny leaves unfurl. Green returns to the branches. The whole process, from autumn preparation to spring emergence, took 8 months. This patience, this careful timing, this refusal to rush, it's built into every tree. And it teaches something profound about how to move through time. Some seeds wait decades before sprouting. They lie in soil, dormant but alive, patient beyond human understanding. A seed has no deadline. It can afford to wait. Buried in forest soil, protected from light and temperature extremes, seeds enter a state of suspended animation. Their metabolism slows to almost nothing. They're waiting for specific conditions, the right temperature, the right moisture, the right light. For some species, the right light means an opening in the canopy, a fallen tree, a gap where sunlight reaches soil. These seeds won't germinate in shade. There's no point. A tiny seedling under dense canopy would starve. So the seed waits. Years pass, decades. It remains viable, testing conditions constantly, refusing to commit until the moment is right. Scientists found viable lotus seeds in a lake bed in China. The seeds were carbon dated. They were over 1,000 years old. When planted in proper conditions, they sprouted. After a millennium of waiting, they grew into healthy plants. Jack pine trees take waiting even further. Their cones don't open naturally. They're sealed with resin that stays hard for years, sometimes decades. The seeds inside remain trapped. The cone hangs on the tree, weathering seasons, holding its seeds prisoner. Only fire opens these cones. Temperatures above 120 degrees Fahrenheit melt the resin. The cone scales separate. Seeds fall onto freshly burned ground that's now clear of competing plants, covered in nutrient-rich ash, ready for new growth. This is called serotiny. The tree has evolved to need fire. It waits for disaster, then seizes the opportunity. Jack pine forests can go 40 years between fires. The trees accumulate decades worth of sealed cones, holding millions of seeds in reserve. When fire finally comes, they all release at once. The burned forest becomes carpeted with seedlings. Some plants wait differently. Rhododendron seeds need cold. They won't germinate without experiencing winter. Drop them in warm soil in autumn, and nothing happens. They wait through winter. Only when spring warmth follows winter cold do they sprout. The seed must know the seasons have turned. Wild ginger seeds need ants. The seeds have a fatty appendage that ants find delicious. Ants carry seeds to their nests, eat the fatty part, and discard the seed in their underground chambers. There, the seed waits in the stable humidity and temperature of an ant nest until conditions are perfect. This patience isn't passive. Seeds are testing constantly. Sensors in the seed coat detect light, temperature, moisture, and chemical signals. The seed is awake, monitoring, deciding. It just refuses to act until everything is right. The forest teaches this. Hurry causes failure. A seed that germinates too early dies in late frost. A seed that germinates in shade starves. A seed that germinates in dry soil desiccates. Patience is survival. Foresters tried to speed up forest regeneration after logging. They planted seedlings immediately in cleared areas. Many died. The soil wasn't ready. The competing plants were too aggressive. The microclimate was wrong. Natural regeneration, where seeds wait for proper conditions, worked better. The forest knows its own timing. Even fungi practice this. Mushroom spores can remain dormant in soil for years. When the right fungal partner appears, a specific tree species, the spores germinate and form mycorrhizal relationships. Until then, they wait. There's no anxiety in this waiting, no impatience. Seeds don't worry about missing their chance. They're programmed to trust that the right moment will arrive. And if it doesn't in their lifetime, their patience ensures they remain viable until it does. But sometimes forests can't wait. Sometimes they must respond immediately to catastrophe. Fire moves through the forest. Trees ignite. The canopy becomes flame. Everything burns. And this is exactly what some forests need. Lodgepole pine forests evolved with fire. Every 100 years or so, lightning strikes during drought. The fire spreads fast, consuming everything. From the outside, it looks like total destruction, but the forest is already responding. Those sealed jack pine cones we talked about pop, open in the heat. Millions of seeds rain down onto ash-covered ground. Within days, they germinate. Within weeks, the burned forest floor is green with seedlings. The fire cleared competition, released nutrients, and triggered reproduction all at once. Fireweed appears even faster. It's named for its habit of being first. Within a week of fire, fireweed pushes up through ash. Bright purple-pink flowers bloom across the blackened landscape. The plant was waiting underground, its roots surviving the surface fire, ready to sprint into the cleared space. Aspen trees regenerate from roots. When fire kills the trunks, the root system remains alive underground. Within days, thousands of new shoots emerge. One aspen tree is actually thousands of trunks connected by a single root system. Kill the trunks and the roots send up replacements immediately. Some aspen groves are tens of thousands of years old, the same organism dying and regrowing above ground repeatedly. Fire releases nutrients locked in wood and leaves. A tree might hold 50 pounds of nitrogen in its tissues. When it burns, that nitrogen returns to soil as ash. The forest becomes suddenly intensely fertile. New plants have abundant resources. The blackened soil absorbs more heat. This warms the ground faster in spring, extending the growing season. Seedlings grow faster on burned ground than on normal forest floor. Some seeds require fire to germinate at all. They have thick coats that must be cracked by heat. They can lie dormant for decades, waiting for fire. When it comes, they all sprout together, creating dense stands of even-aged trees. Not all fires are the same. Low-intensity ground fires burn leaf litter and understory, but leave large trees alive. These fires happened frequently, every 5 to 15 years in many forests. They cleared debris and small trees, preventing fuel buildup that causes catastrophic fires. Native Americans understood this. They used controlled burns to manage forests, keeping them open and healthy. When fire suppression began in the 1900s, forests became overgrown. Decades of leaf litter and dead wood accumulated. When fires finally came, they were much hotter, killing everything, including large trees, that would have survived frequent small fires. Modern foresters are relearning this. Prescribed burns are becoming common. Light fires intentionally set during safe conditions, mimicking natural fire cycles. The forest needs this disturbance to stay healthy. Some tree bark evolved as fire protection. Ponderosa pine has thick, puzzle piece bark that insulates the living tissue underneath. Douglas fir develops thick bark with age. These trees survive ground fires that kill thin-barked competitors. Fire becomes a competitive advantage. Even the forest's memory carries fire. Tree rings show fire scars, dark lines in the wood where fire damaged but didn't kill the tree. Scientists read these rings and reconstruct fire history going back centuries. They can see that fires came regularly, part of the forest's rhythm. The forest isn't fragile, it's resilient, built to be destroyed and rebuilt. Fire is part of its biology, coded into seeds and roots and bark. What looks like catastrophe is actually renewal. And this resilience appears in other forms too, ways the forest bends without breaking. Wind hits a tree at 40 miles per hour. The trunk bends, branches whip sideways. The tree looks like it might snap, but it doesn't. It flexes and returns. Trees are built to bend. Wood is surprisingly elastic. A young tree can bend until its top touches the ground, then spring back unharmed when released. This flexibility is stronger than rigidity. The physics is simple. When wind pushes, a stiff object resists until stress exceeds its breaking point. Then it fractures. A flexible object absorbs the force through deformation. It converts the wind's energy into bending motion instead of structural failure. Trees maximize this principle. Their trunks taper from thick bases to thin tops. This distributes stress evenly. If the trunk were uniform thickness, stress would concentrate at one point and cause breaking. The taper ensures that wind force spreads across the entire structure. Branches grow strategically. Prevailing wind comes from one direction in most locations. Trees develop more branches on the downwind side. These act as counterweights, balancing the tree against constant pushing. The growth pattern compensates for environmental pressure. You can read wind history in tree rings. The side-facing prevailing wind develops compression wood, denser, stronger cells that resist pushing. The opposite side develops tension wood that resists pulling. Cut a tree cross-section, and the rings are wider on one side. That's the tree documenting wind stress over decades. Lone trees develop shorter, thicker trunks. They experience more wind than forest interior trees, so they build accordingly. Forest trees grow tall and thin because neighbors shelter them. If you clear-cut around a forest tree that's been sheltered its whole life, it often blows down in the next storm. It never developed wind strength because it never needed to. Trees also support each other directly. Root systems intermingle underground. In storms, connected trees brace each other. One tree's roots anchor another's. The grove becomes structurally integrated. Crown shyness creates safety too. In some forests, tree crowns don't touch. They maintain small gaps between branches. Scientists think this prevents storm damage. If crowns interlocked, wind could topple multiple trees like dominoes. The gaps allow each tree to move independently. Young trees learn to be flexible. Saplings whip in wind, bending nearly horizontal. This constant motion stimulates growth of reaction wood that makes them stronger. Trees grown in greenhouses without wind develop weak trunks. They need the stress to build proper structure. This is called thigmomorphogenesis, growth response to mechanical stimulation. The tree senses bending through mechanoreceptor cells in its bark. These cells trigger hormone production that increases diameter growth at stress points. The tree literally builds itself stronger where it feels weakness. Even broken branches don't doom the tree. It seals the wound with resin or callus tissue, isolating the damage. It redirects growth hormones to remaining branches. The tree adjusts its shape to compensate for lost weight and changed wind loading. Old trees become more flexible, not more brittle. Young wood is stiff. Mature wood has more variation. Strong heartwood in the center, flexible sapwood outside. This combination provides both strength and give. The lesson is clear. Rigidity breaks, flexibility endures. The strongest trees aren't the ones that resist wind. They're the ones that dance with it. And this flexibility extends beyond the physical. Trees possess another kind of adaptability, a kind of memory and learning that happens without brains, distributed through their entire being. Trees remember, not with neurons or brains, but through chemistry, and they learn from experience. When a caterpillar chews a leaf, the tree floods that area with defensive chemicals. But here's what's remarkable. The next time that same tree gets attacked, it responds faster and stronger. The tree remembers being eaten. This memory lives in epigenetic markers, chemical tags attached to DNA that control which genes turn on or off. The first attack adds tags that keep defense genes primed and ready. These tags can last years. The tree's response becomes faster each time because the memory is written into its cells. Some trees pass this memory to their offspring. A birch tree attacked by insects produces seeds whose seedlings have stronger natural defenses, even if those seedlings never experience attack themselves. The parent tree's experience modified its seed's gene expression. The offspring inherit learned wariness. This isn't Lamarckian evolution. The DNA sequence doesn't change, but which genes are accessible does. It's like bookmarking pages you'll need again. The information was always there, but memory makes it easier to find. Trees also remember seasons. After an early spring, followed by killing frost, a tree becomes more conservative the next year. It delays bud break slightly. The stress of freeze damage altered hormone sensitivity. The tree learned that rushing into spring can be dangerous. Drought memory works similarly. Trees that survive severe drought develop more efficient water use patterns that persist for years. Their stomata, the pores that control gas exchange, become more responsive to moisture stress. They learned to be cautious with water. Mother trees teach this to their young through the mycorrhizal network. Chemical signals carry information about threats, resources, and conditions. A mother tree that experienced drought sends hormonal messages through fungal threads that prime her offspring for water conservation. She's sharing learned knowledge. The network itself facilitates learning. When one tree develops a successful defense against a new pathogen, chemical information about that defense spreads through the fungal connections. Neighboring trees begin producing similar compounds. The forest learns collectively. This is intelligence without centralization. No tree coordinates the response, but the system as a whole adapts, remembers, and improves its reactions. It's distributed wisdom. Even individual cells remember. Cambium cells, the layer that produces new wood, adjust their output based on mechanical stress history. Cells that experienced heavy wind stress produce denser wood in subsequent seasons. The memory operates at the cellular level. Trees demonstrate decision-making. When resources are limited, a tree must allocate them. Grow roots or grow leaves. Produce seeds or store energy. These aren't conscious choices, but they're responses to complex environmental inputs that result in optimal outcomes more often than chance would predict. The decisions improve with age. Young trees make allocation mistakes, overproducing seeds one year and weakening themselves, or growing too fast and developing weak wood. Old trees balance these trade-offs better. They've learned through hundreds of seasonal cycles what works. Scientists tested this by stressing young trees and old trees identically. Young trees often died or suffered severe damage. Old trees survived more readily. The difference wasn't just size, it was refined response patterns developed over time. Experience matters. The forest's collective intelligence is ancient. These networks and memory systems have been evolving for hundreds of millions of years. Every generation of trees added to the wisdom encoded in root communication patterns, hormone signals, and epigenetic markers. And this accumulated wisdom is most concentrated in specific places. The oldest forests hold something that can never be quickly replaced. Stand in an old-growth forest and you feel it immediately. Something different. A quality that young forests don't have. Scientists call it structural complexity. But it's more than that. Old growth means trees over 300 years old. In some forests, over 1,000. These trees tower above everything else. Their trunks are massive, 10 feet across, 20 feet, some even wider. One person can't reach around them. 10 people holding hands barely can. But age alone doesn't make old growth. It's the relationships. These forests have had centuries to develop intricate connections. The mycorrhizal networks are ancient and incredibly complex. Every tree connects to dozens of others through multiple fungal species. The underground web is dense beyond measuring. Mother trees in old growth are enormous. A single old Douglas fir can support hundreds of younger trees through the network. She's been sharing resources for 200 years. Her root connections extend across acres. She's the hub that holds the community together. The canopy is layered in ways young forests never achieve. Trees of vastly different ages create multiple light levels. Gaps from fallen ancients let young trees rocket upward. Dying giants lean on neighbors, held upright by interlocking branches. Dead snags stand for decades, riddled with cavities that house birds and mammals. The forest floor is chaotic. Nurse logs in every stage of decay. Some still solid, some punkwood, some mere ridges in the soil where logs decomposed decades ago. This topography creates microclimates, wet hollows, dry mounds, sheltered spaces, exposed areas. Diversity breeds diversity. You can't recreate this by planting saplings. Even if you wait 300 years, you won't have old growth. The relationships take longer than individual tree lifespans to develop. The soil requires centuries of undisturbed decomposition to achieve its full richness. The fungal networks need time to become truly integrated. Old growth stores more carbon than any other ecosystem. The living trees hold massive amounts. The dead standing trees hold more. The logs on the ground hold even more. The soil holds the most of all, centuries of accumulated organic matter. 1 acre of old growth stores what hundreds of acres of young forest store. These forests are irreplaceable on human timescales. Clear an old growth stand, and you've destroyed something that won't return for 5 centuries minimum. The trees might regrow in 1 human lifetime. The forest won't. The species composition differs too. Some organisms exist only in old growth. Certain lichens require bark that's centuries old. Some salamanders need the stable moisture of ancient forest floor. Marbled murrelets nest exclusively in old-growth branches. Lose the forest, and you lose these species entirely. Cathedral is the word people use. Walk through old growth, and the comparison is obvious. Massive columns rising to a vaulted ceiling. Shafts of light penetrating dimness. A hush that feels sacred. The same sense of age and permanence. These forests witnessed human history. Old growth in Europe stood when Rome fell. Old growth in America predates European arrival. The trees hold records of that history in their rings. Droughts that collapsed civilizations. Volcanic eruptions that darkened skies. Atmospheric changes from industrialization. Only 1% of old-growth forest remains in the United States. The rest was logged. What's left exists in fragments, protected now but isolated. The species that need continuous forest can't move between patches. The fragments are islands. Some scientists work to reconnect these islands, corridors of younger forest linking old growth patches. It's a compromise. The corridors aren't old growth, but they allow movement between fragments. Animals can travel, seeds can disperse, genetic diversity can flow, but nothing replaces the presence of truly ancient forest, the peace it generates, the completeness of its ecosystem, the living proof that patience creates richness that hurry can never match. Humans evolved in forests. For most of our existence as a species, we lived among trees. Our bodies still remember. 200,000 years of human history happened mostly in woodlands and forest edges. Our ancestors sheltered under canopies, gathered food from forest plants, hunted animals that lived in woods. The forest was home. Our eyes evolved for this environment. We see green more precisely than any other color. Our visual system can distinguish more shades of green than any other part of the spectrum. This makes sense. Identifying edible plants, spotting predators in foliage, finding water among vegetation, all required fine green discrimination. The calming effect of forests isn't cultural, it's biological. Studies show people from every culture respond similarly to forest environments. Blood pressure drops, cortisol decreases, heart rate variability improves, a sign of parasympathetic nervous system activation. Your body recognizes safety. This is called biophilia, an innate tendency to connect with nature and other living systems. E.O. Wilson proposed that humans possess genetic predispositions to affiliate with life and lifelike processes. We're drawn to forests because our ancestors survived by being drawn to forests. The Japanese formalized this understanding into Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing. Not hiking or exercising, just being present in woods, walking slowly, sitting quietly, breathing forest air. The practice is now prescribed medically. Health insurance covers it. The research is solid. 2 hours in a forest measurably improves immune function, reduces stress hormones, lowers inflammation markers, and improves mood. The effects last days or weeks. Regular forest exposure accumulates benefits over time. Even viewing forests helps. Hospital patients with windows facing trees recover faster from surgery than patients facing buildings. They need less pain medication. They have fewer complications. Their stress markers are lower. Just seeing trees accelerates healing. Office workers with views of nature report higher job satisfaction and lower stress than those viewing urban scenes. Adding plants to workspaces improves concentration and reduces fatigue. The more nature present, the stronger the effect. Children who play in forests develop better spatial reasoning, creativity, and emotional regulation than children who play only in built environments. Forest kindergartens in Europe show that kids who spend most of their day outdoors have fewer sick days and better motor development. There's something about fractal patterns. Trees branch in self-similar patterns at multiple scales. This fractal geometry appears throughout nature. Our brains process these patterns efficiently. They create interest without overwhelming our visual system. Forests are visually restful because their complexity follows patterns we're designed to perceive. The sounds matter too. Natural soundscapes reduce mental fatigue. The random but patterned sounds of wind, water, and birdsong engage attention gently without demanding focus. This soft fascination gives the brain's executive function time to recover from directed attention fatigue. Smell plays a role. Those phytoncides we discussed don't just boost immunity. They directly affect mood through the olfactory system's connection to the limbic brain, the emotional center. Forest smells trigger relaxation responses at a neurological level. Even touching trees helps. Bark texture provides tactile stimulation that grounds awareness in the present moment. Some studies suggest trees have small electrical fields that humans can detect through touch, though this research is preliminary. We sleep better after forest time. Studies tracking sleep quality find deeper, more restorative sleep following forest exposure. The effect persists for several days. Your body uses the recovery opportunity forests provide. This isn't mysticism. It's biology recognizing its ancestral home. Forests shaped human evolution. Our nervous systems, sensory processing, stress responses, and immune function all developed in forests. We're adapted to them at a fundamental level. Modern life removes us from this environment, but the need remains. The recognition remains. Walk into a forest and something in you settles. That's not poetry. That's your body coming home. That breath you took at the beginning. That oxygen came from a forest somewhere, given freely. A tree split water molecules, kept the hydrogen, and released what you needed. Not because it meant to help you, but the result is the same. You're breathing tree waste, and it keeps you alive. Every forest is part of one system. The roots connect underground. The air connects above. Water cycles from ocean to trees, to clouds, to rain, to rivers, to ocean again. Carbon moves from atmosphere to leaves, to wood, to soil, to atmosphere. Nothing is separate. Everything flows. Even in your room right now, you're connected to this network. The oxygen in your lungs passed through leaves recently. The carbon dioxide you exhale will enter a leaf tomorrow. The water in your body once fell as rain on forests. You're made of the same molecules that trees are made of, cycling endlessly between living and non-living, plant and animal, soil and sky. Forests breathe together. When the Amazon exhales during its growing season, atmospheric carbon dioxide drops measurably across the entire hemisphere. When it inhales during dormancy, levels rise. One forest's respiration affects global atmospheric chemistry. They're all connected, all breathing as one. The wood wide web spans continents in some places. Fungal networks link forests across landscapes. A tree in one valley connects through mycorrhizae to a tree in another. The network carries signals, resources, information. The forest is one organism at scales we barely comprehend. What if forests dream? They experience something like sleep in winter. They respond to stimuli. They remember. they communicate, they learn. Consciousness might not require a brain. Maybe it emerges from connection itself, from information flowing through networks. Maybe the slow thoughts of forests happen over weeks and months, too gradual for us to recognize as thoughts. We'll never know what a tree experiences, but we know trees aren't isolated individuals competing for resources. They're communities. They share, they cooperate, they care for their young and their old. If that's not a form of society, what is? The patience they practice feels impossible to us, waiting decades for the right conditions, growing for centuries, supporting stumps of fallen neighbors, nursing offspring for years, adapting over generations to changing conditions, never rushing, never panicking, always trusting that time will provide what's needed. Maybe that's what we feel in forests, the presence of a different way of being, where speed isn't valued, where patience is strength, where connection matters more than competition, where death feeds life, where nothing is wasted, where every ending is a beginning. Tonight, somewhere, trees are growing in darkness. They're sharing sugar through underground networks. They're breathing out oxygen you'll breathe tomorrow. They're holding soil that would otherwise wash away. They're creating rain that will water crops and fill rivers. They're sheltering animals. They're storing carbon. They're remembering. They're waiting. And they'll still be there when you wake. Thank you for wandering these woods with me tonight. If this journey brought you peace, subscribe to join us for more quiet explorations. We'd love to hear in the comments, what's your favorite thing about forests? What did you learn tonight that surprised you? Let the forest's patience become yours now. Let its slow breath match your breathing. Let yourself rest in the knowledge that forests are working right now, in darkness, creating the air and water and stability that life depends on. They've been doing this for 400 million years. They'll continue tomorrow, and so will you. Sleep well, friend. The trees are dreaming too.